Joining me now for more on this big story is Harmeet Shah Singh from London. Anisha Mathur is my colleague who covers legal issues. She joins me in our studio. Harmeet, 200 plus young Sikhs took to the streets of London. Can you give us details? Why did they have to take to the streets?
This happened, Gaurav, because this was the last straw on the back of the Sikhs. This is not an isolated incident at all. It's part of a project called turning Kaurs into Khans, and this has been happening for the past 2.5 decades or so. And there are allegations of police inaction because it's also seen as in the realm of the law, it's seen as something which may provoke a racist accusation, but that's not the case. So far as the Sikh girls are concerned, there are grooming gangs, and the members of these gangs are from Islamic background, and that's a harsh reality. And most of them come from Pakistan. That's again another harsh reality, or Afghanistan. So
stay with me for a moment. Stay with me for a moment. This is very disturbing. Picking up girls as young as 11, 12 and 13 and giving them drugs and then raping them, repeatedly raping and peddling them subsequently. Anisha, you've been looking at reports in the UK. How grave is the situation of these grooming gangs? What more can you tell us?
Well, Gaurav, there are official reports, official numbers that have been looking at these kind of child sexual exploitation, group sexual assault of children. And the last and the most important one right now for us is the report by Baroness Casey, which was tabled in the UK Parliament. This is an official report which looked at the hundreds of cases across several years where convictions have actually happened. And what they've said is that there is a disproportionate number of men of Asian ethnic backgrounds, disproportionate number of men also belonging to Pakistani backgrounds. What is also interesting, Gaurav, is this debate that happened in the UK Parliament in December, just a few days ago, in fact, where the Home Secretary announced that there will be a national inquiry into the ethnic background of the perpetrators of this child sexual abuse crimes, because the UK has recognized over decades that there have been such grooming gangs that have been operating. There have been multiple reports since 2009 in the UK, Gaurav, where such cases have happened, where young girls are pulled into what is shown initially as a romantic relationship. Then they are given drugs, they're often beaten, they are horrifically exploited. Several of these cases also showing that they've been sent off to different people to be exploited, to be raped again and again. And it is a horrifying situation that has happened over decades in the UK. And finally, since last year, we see that this is also coming for a reckoning as the UK government is talking about changing laws. They're talking about looking into ethnic backgrounds. And as Harmeet was saying, for a very long time, this has become a political hot potato because people were not willing to look into the ethnicities of the perpetrators for fear of racial profiling. And that this is something we've been looking at, Gaurav. The reports that I'm looking at for the last several years, whether it is in the Parliament or in the news, the politics over racial profiling, the politics over fears that there are a particular religion or a particular ethnic background may be profiled, and that we've seen reports coming in where victims have come out in the open to say that their case was being ignored or they were being called prostitutes because the authorities did not want to make it look like they are ethnically profiling the perpetrators. This is something that is very serious, Gaurav.
How? It just defies logic. Harmeet, you were mentioning this K to K project, Kaur to Khan. This almost sounds like, what is described often in India and legally as love jihad. What is this Kaur to Khan project?
Well, this Kaur to Khan project, as it is called here, there is a very well-heeled kind of a modus here. in which, the young girls are approached by people of Islamic background. In this case, there is the man allegedly comes from Afghanistan, but in most cases there are Pakistani people, because they speak Punjabi. They would socialize with Sikh girls wearing a kada. So that's something which will, strike a chord. For example, if someone's original name is Salim, he'll say that his name is Satinder. So that will strike the conversation, and that goes on and on. And then the next part of this modus is that these girls are groomed for various activities. One of them being to serve as these are, of course, there are written complaints about it, that to serve as second or third wife of these men back in Pakistan, or to act as the, to go there for sex holidays in Dubai.
No, but explain this to me.
And also,
the Sikh community in Hounslow, and I'm so glad they came together as a community to protect one daughter. And perhaps, if the system fails them, people have to come together to protect your family, to protect your loved ones. That's very clear. But tell me about Sikhs in India. A large Sikh community lives in India. Have they raised this issue? Is this issue being raised? Is this a one-off, or is this like a much, much wider problem?
Definitely, it's not a one-off issue. As I mentioned earlier, this issue dates back to a couple of decades. The unfortunate part in our country, in India, is that, there are certain vocal voices. There's people who are very vocal, who now, dominate social media. They somehow act as proponents of this imagined bonhomie between the two Punjabs, the Indian Punjab and the Pakistani Punjab, and they actually brush aside anything which involves the perpetrators from Pakistani Punjab, or from Islamic background. But that's very unfortunate. This shows that the kind of double register that does exist in our society.
Because the Pakistanis are very clear. And Anisha, you've been looking at these reports. Have these reports do they seem to indicate majority of the perpetrators? And I'm not talking about the accused. The convicts are all Pakistanis, either second generation or first generation Pakistanis?
Well, Gaurav, let me take you through some of these reports. The Rotherham incident, where almost 1,200 victims there is allegation that there were about 1,200 victims. What the report says is majority of the perpetrators are from Pakistani background. We see the 2015 Birmingham report, 75 grooming suspects were analyzed, 62% of those are Pakistani, 12% are white, 500 victims in this Birmingham report. We've seen these reports coming in also. Between 1989 to 1995, and what we're seeing is also, 2010, 11 men convicted in Derbyshire. 10 were Pakistani out of these 11 convicted, 26 victims. 2011, we see a detailed expose by the Times in UK by Andrew Norfolk, highlighting the number of prosecutions with Pakistani ethnicity, the perpetrators of
Anisha,
Pakistani
keep tracking
ethnicity.
that story. I will come back to you for more. This is really, really disturbing, but so happy to see the community come together and protect one of their own. Perhaps a lot more is needed, and a lot more of the state intervening and not trying to be so proper. It's more important to protect these girls, to protect and ensure law is upheld instead of what Pakistanis may think or may appear to do. But we'll be tracking that story closely.